Welcome back, traders, to another live trading video. Taking a look here at Aussie Swiss. I am currently long on this trade, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight as to why I took this trade. And as you know, in these videos, I will be recording this from start to finish, whether it is a win or a loss. I'll be filming it and uploading it to YouTube so that you guys can see what it looks like to be in real currency trades with a little bit larger lot size than maybe some of the other traders out there are doing. So I'm currently one lot, or just about 1.05 lots long on Aussie Swiss. I'm only risking $250 on this trade, which is quite small relative to the account. And so I have basically already gone long here. We will see if this trade can work out, but let me talk to you guys a little bit about the entry, where I am looking to try and go with this currency pair, and so on and so forth. So let's start actually on the higher time frames. So on the high time frames, you've got this daily chart uptrend. And the thing is, we have sort of this counter trend that is currently dominating price. You can see price sort of stuck in this downward channel for the time being, but I'm looking to see if that is going to bottom out somewhere around here. We actually wicked off of the bottom of this channel recently, and so far have been able to hold where we currently sit. Now, I have a pretty tight stop loss if you look at the daily chart, but again, we'll look at the 1 hour chart in just a moment to narrow in. But I wanted to just point out the fact that on the high time frames, this thing is overall in a nice uptrend, and I would love to see if we could get some nice push off of the bottom here. If not, I'm going to stop out fairly quickly, and that is why my stop loss is pretty tight. So again, here's the 4 hour view, and you'll see that on this channel, it does look a bit like it's in a downtrend. However, with that said, you know, we've been bouncing back and forth off of this, and right now we've been bouncing off just slightly off of the lows of this range. So as we bottomed out to the bottom here, I basically said, okay, well, if price can hold this area for a little bit, I'd be interested in looking to go long. And now we go down to the 1 hour chart, where you can see the entry that we're in currently. So I ended up going long here. It is a Friday, so I plan on holding this one into the weekend. I am a swing trader, so I don't mind holding things over the weekend. So again, what I noticed is that price has been holding this low very, very well. I do have a fundamental bias to the long side on this currency pair. I think that the Australian dollar has more upside. It's been very, very strong in the last year or so. It's just been recently pulling back. And so I've been sort of fishing for an opportunity to go long on the Aussie, and very interested in also shorting the Swiss franc. Part of the reason behind shorting the Swiss franc is that the Swiss National Bank themselves has actually mentioned that they would like to weaken their own currency for the trade advantages that come with a weaker currency. So their sort of interest is trying to devalue their own currency for that advantage in trade. And then also you just have more of a risk on sentiment right now at the time of making this video. Now, what do I mean by risk on? Well, risk on essentially means that people or investors more likely are looking for yield on their investment. They're trying to make money. And you might say, well, isn't it always the point to make money? But the reality is, when it comes to trading, there are times where institutions, big traders, investors are looking to make money on their money. And there are other times where people are trying to protect and keep their money safe. Things like when we had the pandemic and the markets were dropping dramatically, things switched from risk on to risk off. Now, right now, we are more in, again, like I said, that risk on scenario, meaning that people are buying for yield. And one of those things that tends to do well is the Australian currency during good times because of their heavy involvement with trade. So I've had a long bias on the Aussie, and with this recent dip on the 4 hour chart, I've been looking for opportunities to try and pick out some long setups. Now, I might not get it perfect on this entry. Again, the technicals are fairly simple here. I shared this trade with members inside of the Discord. We can pop up an image of what that trade alert looked like. Again, my stop loss is fairly tight here, only risking about 25 pips on the downside. So if price breaks this low, then I'm going to get out fairly quickly with minimal damage. Again, like I said, risking around $250 on this trade. On the other side of things, if things do get going here for the Aussie, if I'm right and we do start to see the next few weeks things looking good for the Aussie, then I can see myself maybe making some money off this trade, but even also buying it later on. So I take sort of a bigger picture approach or analysis of a market, and then I will look to take swing trades based on that ideology, based on the next few weeks. So right now, again, like I said, I'm giving this a stab. We'll see if it works out. If it doesn't, I'll take a small loss. And if it does, then I'll look to try and trail stops and let this thing run. A lot of times I get the question, well, Nick, where's your target on this trade? And I do not necessarily have a strict target, but we will take a look here on the 4-hour chart and just take a look at some of the levels of resistance where I will probably be looking to trail stops, etc. So let's go ahead and mark this area here. So we'll make this a supply level. So if price does get going to the upside, these are some areas on the chart where I see resistance on the lower or on the 4-hour time frames. But again, on that daily chart, you've got that nice overall uptrend. So I'm looking to see if we can get that push off of the low of this channel. So again, we're at the low of the channel. We're in a longer term uptrend, and we are seemingly holding support for now. Like I said, risking a small amount on this trade. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, I'll still upload it to YouTube, and hopefully we can still learn some lessons together as a community. So with that said, I'll pause the video and come back once things have gotten going here on Aussie Swiss. And we're moving here nicely on the old Aussie Swiss. I'll pull up the chart really quick, or the Discord really quick. I just mentioned to members that I just moved my stop loss to break even on this trade, and basically mentioned the fact that we broke through, or at least looks like we're closing above that key level of resistance that I've been watching to move my stop. So here is the actual chart. You can see up about $400 on the trade right now, which is a good spot to be in, especially since I only risked $250. So I'm over my risk, almost 2 times my initial risk, which is a good spot to be in. And I love the way this candle is closing, or looks like it's going to close. It's just got a few minutes there on it. But anyways, I basically just moved my stop up to break even here. So locked in the trade. If you remember, my stop loss was below this structure, just saying, hey, if it breaks lower, then I'll get out of the trade. And on the flip side, if things go up, the main spot of interest for me right now is this zone right here. So that spot is essentially the barrier, I think, for price to continue and to break into the next zone, if you will. So let's talk about that really quick while we are looking at this. We'll talk about where that next zone could be. So we're looking at the 4-hour chart. Like I said, I moved my stop up to break even, and the next major spot that I see here is probably a little bit easier to see on the 4-hour chart. You can see here this spot of previous resistance here. So I'd like to see if we can, once we clear this level, I'd love to see this thing start to make its way up there for me to really start locking in more profit on this Aussie Swiss trade. But for now, you know, what I basically did with this scenario is I said, okay, well, it seems that we picked a nice little bottom, but the real question is it a true bottom of this market, or is this just a little bit of a retest of structure before we ultimately go lower? So what I've done to counterbalance either scenario is I've locked in that stop so that if price rolls over and fails, just get me out of the trade, no problem. I'll take a very, very small profit there and move on. On the flip side, if things can break and hold above it, that gives me the opportunity to take that trailing stop and move it up even further, using this structure as sort of my barrier or guard for stop loss if we can truly break that. So that's the scenario that I'm looking at. Those are the 2 scenarios I'll be watching for. Again, hovering just around $400 on the trade at this time. I'll go ahead and pause and come back once things are moving again. All right, guys, and we are all out of Aussie Swiss here. Price ended up coming back against us. You can see the rejection here was really sharp by sellers up in this region. And again, I was really hoping to see if this thing was going to keep me in it for this to break and to hold above this area. We did not get that. We actually see a lot of sell pressure coming in on the Aussie today. And so I just closed out of my trade for about break even. Ended up, you know, give or take, we were at $22 of profit. So I don't know if I would even count that, considering, you know, I was risking 250 initially. So I'll take it though. Still a very small profit on this trade. And again, my idea was okay. The bottom of this range held, but again, that sell off at the top did also hold pretty strong. So with that said, all out of the trade. And again, this is just the reality of some of the real trading that I do. Sometimes you can just get a break even trade, and it's kind of a boring trade. And this is just maybe a good lesson for people who are interested in trading or learning to trade. This is sometimes the reality of a position. You take something and it just ends up being a flat trade. So with that said, all out, and I hope you enjoyed this live trading video. If you did enjoy it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you back in the next one.